Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth. We're Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. Hey, welcome to Buckeye Huddle Primetime. It is showtime, and tonight we start the show with a little bit of Ryan Day.
Shouldn't be one person in this building that feels comfortable when they walk around. But at the same time, people love being in the building. And I think that to me, is winning culture. But it's day to day, man. And we are in a race to be the best in the country. And so, we got to wake up early and make sure that, we're out in front of this, because where we're going is not easy. And
that got me so fired up. It got me so fired up. And I just want to point out as we start the show that the Buckeyes, the defending national champs, the number one team in the country, have the single best unit in the country, and that's the Ohio State defense. The number one unit, I don't think anybody could debate that right now. And right there, that's the best coach in the country. And you see that coming off a national championship, there is hunger. You listen to him talk. He's got a plan. It's 3 steps ahead. And whether it's right or whether it's almost right, he's going to make sure it is right, no matter how many times it takes him. Best coach in the country, man. We are a lucky bunch for sure. PJ Fleck, Minnesota head coach, who is, he's always been a kind of a goofy dude, but he knows football for sure. And Minnesota comes in to play the Buckeyes at 8 p.m. Or is it 8 p.m.? Or is it 7 p.m.? Maybe 7:30. It's a night game at the Shoe on Saturday. A night game at the Shoe, and he brings the Gophers back in. And it reminds me of every time PJ Fleck gets brought up, really, the first time he brought Western Michigan in to coach against Ohio State. And he always tries to have clever little gimmicks and put things together in his fire up the team speech. And that day, his speech was, it ended in horseshoe, Broncos foot. Western Michigan is the Broncos. Horseshoe, Broncos foot. Let's go get him. And it was just hilariously goofy to me. And I played it once on my show. It got a copyright infringement, so I won't play it for you today. But it's really, really funny. But PJ Fleck was giving his press conference on Monday. And he was talking about, first he was talking about Jeremiah Smith, and it would be difficult to find a coach more complimentary of a player than he was of Jeremiah Smith. But then he was talking about the Ohio State defense, and he was talking about just how incredibly difficult it is not only to play against them, but how incredibly difficult it is for coaches to coach what Ohio State is coaching right now, how difficult it is to pull that off. And it's so difficult, and not everybody can do it because it's so hard. Not only does Ohio State have the coaches and players to get it done, which is what PJ said, I personally think it's much more than that. Like in today's college football game, places like Ohio State, places at the top of the food chain, guys who are making a lot of money, it is hard to get a team-first attitude at places like that. And Ohio State had the best defense in the country last year. So you got the best defense in the country again this year, and it's totally different. And for us to watch kind of what's happening right now on this defense, you had to have a lot in place to make it happen. In one offseason, they pulled this off. First, Ryan Day had to make the right hire in Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia then had to come in and earn everybody's trust from the top down. Then he had to teach a bunch of brand new starters a whole lot of different things than they'd been learning all throughout their career at Ohio State. Then you had to have the athletes in play to make the plays. Then they had to be smart enough and talented enough to remember it all. And maybe the hardest part, they had to be willing to change. And some people don't like change. A majority of people don't like change. And it's really hard to convince people that you need to change or they should want to change when you just had the number one defense last year. And that is Ryan Day's program, the selfless team first attitude, and he's responsible for it. And I don't think that you could have pulled off what they did with this defense at very many programs in college football. I think the majority of programs you could have pulled this off would be programs that consistently play above their athletes, places that you would think of like an Iowa State, places like that could pull off what they did this year. And it is tremendous to watch. It's obviously the defense is amazing. We've got players popping up right and left who are just like, wow, man, this guy's an absolute star now. And it is so much fun. But it requires so much stability at the top, everyone trusting the leader, everyone believing in the program, and selfless football players, which are harder and harder to come by in this era where we're seeing it kind of be the norm for a guy to have at least one transfer on his record. And what we've seen out of this defense has been just incredible. So tonight, I want to talk about Julian Sayin coming under fire from some Buckeye fans, from some national media. Are there really any issues, or is this just a bunch of hogwash? And I want to talk about offensive identity. Do you have to have an offensive identity? Do you need one? Do the Buckeyes have one on offense right now? I did a show earlier over on Juck on Bucks today. 4 guys that I would love to see get a bigger role right now in the team, get some more snaps, and why that is. And I'll hit on that a little more briefly at the end, but it's about a 45-minute show. So if you want to see the whole thing, go ahead over there and check that out. Tomorrow over at Juck on Bucks, I'm going to do surprises. You know, we talk all off season long about the roster. We all kind of make predictions. I think Caden Curry is going to be the guy. I think Bo Atkinson will be the guy, etc. And then we get here, and inevitably some surprises pop up, some good, some bad. And there are way more of them in a team where we don't know everybody and we don't, have as much of a baseline. A year like this where we have so much turnover, so many guys going to the NFL, and there's a ton of surprises. And I want to go through that list of surprises, both the good and the bad, not just players, but things we've seen so far in the season. And we're going to do that tomorrow over Juck on Bucks. As always, tonight, I try to be as interactive as possible. If you want to get your comments read, put a question mark after it, whether it's a statement or a question. Just put that question mark. It flags it for me so that I can see it. And when I'm sifting through, then I can, it'll stand out to me and I'll pull it up. But please like the show. If you like the show, subscribe to Buckeye Huddle. I wrote an article over at BuckeyeHuddle.com today about this defense and how impressive what we're witnessing is. And you can check us out over there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We would love for you to join, be a member, interact with us on the board over there all day. It's an awesome time. Some of the smartest, most diehard Buckeye fans that I've come across over there on that board. And it's a lot of fun. I'm often there 3-4 times a day, checking in and commenting on all sorts of stuff. So check that out. But what is the offensive identity of this 2025 team? What is offensive identity? Like, I think you could probably sum it up best is like, what is your bread and butter when you got to have it, when you got to be your best, when you got to impose your will? Who are you? What do you lean on? What's your identity at your core? That's a lot of explanations because I've always kind of wondered, like, how do you sum that up? I don't know. But I think right now what we're seeing from this team is a lot of experimentation. And I think we've seen this experimentation really get kind of a wrench thrown in it. And I think it's behind schedule. I think it's behind schedule as the Buckeyes now a third of the way through the regular season. I don't think they know what their identity is quite yet. And one of the reasons I think it's behind schedule is that Texas game, which was kind of a total one-off to this entire season. It was a total one-off in how they prepared for it the entire preseason. It was a total one-off in how they came out with the game plan, which was basically just, look, we're going to win this game at all costs. We're going to protect our starting quarterback, and we're going to come out of this game not like the opposing team who came out of the game with their starting quarterback. Well, look, we saw Arch Manning 2 weeks ago flexing on that kid in the end zone, that University of Texas San Antonio kid, or Sam Houston. And when he scored that, after the game, he said that was a lot of pent-up frustration from the past 3 weeks that started at the Ohio State game. And Steve Sarkisian in Texas did the exact wrong thing with Arch Manning that Ohio State did with Julian Sayin in that game. A game that Texas had 166 yards rushing, 14-7 game, and they somehow managed to let that kid go 17 for 30 and squander his confidence, totally shot in a non-conference game that you would probably rather lose than let your quarterback come out of like that. It's exactly what Ryan Day and Brian Hartline guarded against, and they did it successfully and were still able to win the game. Now, luckily for them, Julian Sayin maybe got maybe a little better, not only a little bit more of an accurate quarterback, but a little more of the mental makeup, because it's pretty clear that this was in Arch's head and really got him in a bad way. But the Buckeyes weren't taking any chances. They came after the game and said, yeah, we probably could have put more on his plate, and they were very impressed. But mission one accomplished. However, I don't think you can really learn much from the game other than you got a really tough team who won a game. And as far as developing a team identity, you can't take much from it. Still a great win. I'm still glad they played the game. I think that a win like that is just a tremendous, it's just like a rocket ship to the start of a season. But you didn't learn much, and you didn't get many lessons other than you got a difficult time running against one of the best defensive fronts in the country. 2.3 yards per carry on the ground that day. So you had that game. Then you roll into Grambling State, and that's just a bad FCS team where you can do whatever you want. And Ohio State chose to do everything it wanted, right? Everybody played, and it was more like a glorified scrimmage. So again, I don't think you learned anything from game one or game two. And you're 2 games through, rolling into one of the better teams in the MAC, Ohio, severely overmatched. And again, the offense, despite the score, they only scored 37 points, 347 yards, passing 225 on the ground. They, outside of a couple of poorly executed plays in the red zone, basically did whatever they wanted on offense. And I wasn't concerned about this red zone issue that they had against Ohio, because to me, the plays were there, just a bit of bad execution that I trust will be cleaned up moving forward. So now they're 3 games into the season. They've faced 2 very overmatched opponents where they did whatever they wanted. Then they faced a team that was a game plan, totally a one-off we won't see again all year. And that's where we sat as we rolled into Washington last week, which felt to me like, okay, now we're finally going to see what's this team's bread and butter. Who are they? What's their identity on offense? And the defense for Washington had just given up 24 points to Wazoo, 21 points to Colorado State. Now they got to face the Buckeyes. And they lost their best corner and their best linebacker before the game. To me, it felt like the Buckeyes were going to kind of unleash hell on these guys. And we're going to find out who the Buckeyes are offensively against Washington. And then you go out and play the game, and the offense gets 6 flipping possessions. Now, I was saying 7 because it is technically 7, but the final possession was a throwaway possession running out the clock. And yesterday at the press conference, Ryan Day was saying 6 himself. So I'm sticking with 6. 6 possessions in a game is a little more than the first half a couple of years ago. That's just, it's bizarre. 6 possessions. So what did we learn in those 6 possessions? Well, you scored in 4 of them. 3 of them were touchdowns. That's fantastic. Brian Day said yesterday, the goal in the red zone, 75% touchdowns. 3 touchdowns, 4 attempts. I don't even know if they made the red zone, but 4 of those possessions down there were touchdowns, or 3 of them were touchdowns, 4 total scoring out of 6 total possessions. It's a good. And he said it was a good day at the office as far as the number of 10-yard plays, 8-yard plays. So he was pretty happy with it. But you come out with 24 offensive points in a 24-6 victory. I don't think that this is some team that's going to line up and run it down your throat, though they started off the game like that, and it sure looked like it might continue like that. They were blowing holes wide open. But when things got bottled up, they quickly changed up. C.J. Donaldson on the day rushed for 4.3, James Peoples 3.3, even Bo was just 4.7. So I don't think it's a team that's going to be a stellar rushing team this year. Are they going to be a team that's going to sling it around the yard? I don't think we can see that from the Washington game, not in terms of like slinging it around the yard. Julian's average depth of target was just 5 yards. When we look at Grambling, it was 8.6. Texas, it was 6.2. Higher against Texas than it was against Washington. Ohio, it was 9.2. So is it going to be a dink and dunk kind of offense? Is that what we got to look forward to here? Or was that just a Washington thing? Were they just protecting their young quarterback on the road for his first big-time road appearance? I don't think the intention is for this to be a dink and dunk offense. I don't think that's the plan long term. But there has been a lot of criticism of Julian Sayin for his lack of long ball attempts, not just against Washington, even before that game. Though there were 0 attempts over 20 yards against Washington, 9 on the entire season. Now, my thought was Will Howard, whose kind of extra it factor as a quarterback was obviously his leadership and his ability to run the ball. He didn't run the ball a lot, but he had the ability to. Julian Sayin, I thought that his little extra was going to be not just his accuracy, but his deep ball. I'm gonna toss it deep and I'm gonna hit it accurately often. And I kind of thought Ohio State would be taking advantage of that by this point in the season, taking advantage of Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Like, those are huge advantages. You got a quarterback that can get it to him. We'll talk more about that deep ball in a bit. But what about the tight ends? What I didn't think was, and what I hope isn't the case, is the identity of this team is it's a tight end driven offense. Against Washington, we saw 120 snaps from the tight ends, 62 total plays. I didn't think we'd see that. We started off the season seeing a lot of them. I thought it would kind of fade away. Do you remember Keenan Bailey after the national championship game? Keenan Bailey, after the national championship game, talked several times about recruiting and talked about in the national championship game, they lined up down by the goal line and they had 14 personnel in, and he was using it as a recruiting tool. He was so excited about it. It was like a big talking point for him. The amount of times I've seen this year, 14 personnel, it's just a random Tuesday anymore, man. They're running it all the time. 13 personnel consistently. Like, it's not, I mean, it's rare to see around college football. It's not rare at Ohio State. Like, this is a goal line possession right here with 14 personnel. And I don't think this is the one. Which one is this? This is the one where CJ Donaldson leaked out and caught the touchdown pass. Not the one he got stuffed. But 4 tight ends in the game in the national championship, a big selling point. And we go from that to now we're seeing it consistently. And 13 personnel means you only got Jeremiah on the field. Look, I like tight ends. I love them. Who's the bigger mismatch? Do you want to pull your star wide receivers off the field so you can get a matchup with a tight end against a linebacker? Or is it a bigger mismatch to have Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith against anybody in the world? To me, that's the obvious answer. Where it's even more confusing is the insistence on using these tight ends in short yardage situations, which, let's be honest, haven't gone well for Ohio State so far. Like, what they're doing here, consistently bringing in all these tight ends is, and I'll just pull a picture back. Here's 13. That's not even a better one. This one's better. When you look at this, what you've done is you've brought the entire defense in and congested everything closer together. And now, instead of having some wide receivers bring some of those bodies away, what you're now counting on is not just your 5 offensive linemen all to make their blocks. You're now counting on, I need Jelani and Max Clare and Nate Roberts and Bennett Christian to all make their blocks and none of them get beat. So now I'm counting on more people, and the odds are one of them going to screw up, which is exactly what we saw in CJ Donaldson's 4th and 1 failed attempt on the first possession. The first possession where CJ Donaldson was supposed to have number 83 to the left there, leading up through the hole in front of him. Nate Roberts didn't get there because Jelani Thurman, he thought, was missing his block, and that guy was squirting through. So he diverted to get Jelani's guy. Unfortunately, Jelani ended up winning the block, and the guy ended up on the ground before Nate got there, but Nate had to make the decision in a split second. And now you've got CJ one-on-one meeting that guy in the hole when Nate should have been blocking up in there. And my point is, Jelani missed the block to begin with, and it's just one more guy. If you just had your wide receivers out, like that would all been out there, not messing with you. Or if they wanted to cheat, hit one of them. It just seems like the excess use of tight ends recently is like, it was kind of cool to begin with, and I really like all these tight ends, but doing it at the expense of the wide receivers being on the field consistently, it just seems a little odd. It really seems a little excessive. I guess that's how I'll put it. I like mixing it in. I don't know what the plan is moving forward with that. But what we did see out of that formation where they missed it on 4th and 1 was a little later on. We saw Donaldson sneak out in that same formation, and Julian hit him for the touchdown down by the goal line. So that's nice to see, setting him up in that formation, and then you hit him with the pass in the same formation later. Good to see that out of Heartline. But they've gone a little excessive on it to me. And Ohio State not really taking advantage of their incredibly talented quarterback and the best wide receivers in the country when the best wide receivers in the country aren't on the field. Now, talking about the deep ball, which was a big topic of conversation this week, I thought that we would potentially see Jeremiah Smith top of the Heisman charts right now and putting up big numbers because I thought Julian Sayin would be a deep ball assassin. And so far this year, certainly accurate with him, he's 9 for 9. Unfortunately, 9 attempts is 98th in the country. The college football nerds kind of spearheaded this criticism this week, and I've seen several people pick up on it. Criticism of Julian Sayin in the deep ball. They broke down his 9 deep receptions and kind of picked each one apart to try to say, well, this one really wasn't very good, and this throw was short, and all of them had way too much air on it. And what they're saying by too much air is he's got a relatively weak arm. He can't throw it on a frozen rope. He's got to launch it all the way up in the air. But the truth is, that's how Ryan Day has instructed his quarterbacks to throw that ball, because he believes with the talented wide receivers he has, they've got such an advantage over those defensive backs. The goal is to give them the opportunity to make a play on that ball or draw a pass interference, and he thinks it's a higher percentage of a positive outcome with the ball coming in at that trajectory. And that is how he has coached these guys. So Julian Sayin incorrectly getting labeled as having a weak arm because of that when he's been coached to do that. But it is true, we don't have a big sample size here. When we look at Will Howard last year in regards to the deep ball, you remember early in the year, I was doing a show. People were mad. They wanted to see Will throw more deep balls. They were mad that they were consistently short. Nobody's been mad about Julian's deep balls. But Julian averaging just 2.25 20-yard passes a game right now. Will Howard averaged 3.5. So Will considerably higher than Julian at this point in the season. That's pretty shocking to me. Will was 47 attempts on the year, 27 completions of 20 plus. I think Julian's accuracy, he'll be much higher than that, but we're not seeing them yet. And many people are pointing out that there were plenty of opportunities against Washington. Before you could see the all 22, sit watching the game live. It was pretty clear. It looked like, okay, Washington's doing everything they can to take away the deep ball. Then you see the all 22 and you see, okay, there was a shot available there. There was a shot available there. Here's a seam shot. And Ross Fulton, our X's and O's guru at Buckeye Huddle, told Tony the other day, and Tony said it on Monday's show, that there was about 5 he saw where Julian could have gone long. I watched the all 22. I saw a solid 3 where I wish he'd have pulled the trigger. But there were a couple that I could see, okay, somebody might say this here, but I'm looking at him kind of feeling some pressure in the pocket, and the ball needs to be out like now, but he's kind of moving his feet. So I don't know if I'm going to knock him for that one. But definitely there were some shots there. And he did have some happy feet in this game. He was moving out of the way sometimes of some pocket pressure that really didn't exist. I guess my question, though, for the people that think he had these shots available to him and he just wasn't taking them, because I've heard he's scared to take them, do they think it's possible, maybe just possible, that Ohio State came in with the game plan of, we're going to run the ball down these guys' throats? And when that stopped working, they said, okay, we're going to use the passing game as an extension of the running game. And the way they decided to play that was, Julian, we can pick them apart underneath and on the sidelines. Keep it that way. Hit your checkdowns. Don't get greedy. Do they think maybe that's a possibility? Because I think that's a pretty strong possibility based on the circumstances, based on how conservative they've been with him and how guarded they've been with him. So personally, I think this criticism of him is ridiculous. I think that dude is a top 5 quarterback in college football. And by the end of the year, he's going to be really good in the playoffs. Entering next year, I think he'll be at the top of the Heisman board, which I'm not so sure is a good thing anymore, as we saw this year what that did for those folks. But honestly, man, this dude is absolutely legit. He's got some things to work on. The happy feet in the pocket we talked about, but he's never flinched. And what I loved watching this game, this Washington game, multiple times he would hit a receiver and just kind of skip up and jump and point at him. It's like, all right, now we're seeing emotion with it. In the beginning of the game, early on, camera flashed to him. He was smiling and laughing and joking. The quick release is really coming in handy when he's got to hit somebody fast. I think he's absolutely got a killer personality when it comes to not just being a facilitator of the offense, but taking the long shot. He's not reckless, but he's not someone I would call a gunslinger that throws a bunch of picks, but he wants big shots. He absolutely does. You could see it all over his high school film. So unless the Tiger came in and totally changed his stripes, I don't think he did. I fully believe this was part of the game plan here. And that's why his average depth of target was so much lower than usual. Like I said, 2 yards lower than even the Texas game, which we know how conservative that game plan was. So I think this was 100% dictated by the coaches. And I think that obviously we're not going to know for a couple of weeks if that's true or not. But we're talking about the most accurate quarterback in the country. And of the top 20 accurate quarterbacks in the country, he's one of just 4 who's averaging double-digit numbers in reception yardage. So obviously that's just, yeah, you got good receivers, and it's not just a dink and dunk offense. So a dink and dunk game plan, perhaps. Not a dink and dunk offense, not a long shot offense. Is it a tight end offense? It's not a run it down your throat offense. The running game right now in the biggest games of the year, 2.3 yards a carry versus Texas for 77 total yards, 4.4 against Washington for 149 yards. Obviously very bad against Texas, but they're maybe outside of Ohio State, the best defensive front in the country. Washington, not that great. 4.4 is not enough. And when you're not really running the ball good enough to get 5 yards a clip, that's just not good enough. I mean, it's just not. And nobody's going to accuse you of being a good running game if you're not getting 5 yards a clip. So that's got to get better. And we got to also add in to this conversation when we're talking about offensive identity and searching for it, the slow play. Ohio State, 110th in the country in total pass attempts out of 136. 108th in the country in total rushing attempts. One of the slowest moving offenses in the entire country, and something Ryan Day started last year. So how many fewer attempts through 4 games are they at this year versus last year? Because moving slow also means fewer opportunities for your young quarterback to get reps, live reps, which means it's going to affect how fast young players are improving, and not just your quarterback, but all your young players. Have they been playing slower this year than they were last year? Because they did this last year as well. They have played 34 less offensive snaps through 4 games this year. That's a half a game less through 4. So if they play 16, that's the equivalent of 2 less offensive games. And I can hear people saying that's brilliant. That's 2 games less of wear and tear on your body in this ultra long season. Look, last year, Ohio State played 16 games to win a national championship. The year before, in the 4-team playoff, Michigan played 15. It's not much longer. That's 1 game. And quite honestly, if we go back to 2002 and 2003, before the clock changes, shaved a bunch of plays off, it's right about the same, to be quite honest. There's not more football. Now there's way less football with the way they're playing it. But when we talk about Julian Sayin, his development is something that you're trying to fast track, right? So you want Julian to get it down fast. You want him to learn as fast as he can. And at the same time, Julian, he's only attempted 31 passes twice, which means an entire game less of passes than Will had through 4 games. Like, the goal of playing less football and trying to develop your young quarterback to win a national championship, they're kind of in conflict. You want to develop him, but you're playing him less. You know what I mean? It's almost like you might as well pull him out of the game. You might as well have said, look, we benched him for an entire half of football through the first 2 games. That's what it is. So it's difficult. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know this. Do you remember how Ryan Day used to be with his quarterback scrambling? I don't know if you saw Justin Fields over the weekend. On Sunday, Justin Fields busted off a 45-yarder. And I'm just looking at this like, my gosh, man, Ryan Day once told that guy not to run. And that's true. He once told him don't take off and run. Now, a lot of that was he just wanted him to become a better passer. A lot of it was he didn't want him to get hurt, which is how he was with C.J. Stroud as well. Didn't want him scrambling. Throw it away. And he still isn't crazy about his quarterback scrambling. But yesterday at his press conference, he complimented Julian Sayin for a couple of really nice runs on a scrambling. One of them made a 47-yard field goal or 45-yard field goal attempt, a 32-yard field goal attempt on 3rd and 17. And he complimented Julian on that. And I loved hearing him say that because coming into this season, I was wondering how he was going to be with the quarterback running the ball when it came to Julian. Obviously, these aren't called runs, but in the past, he's don't do it. And it's clear that he's okay. He's found balance here. He's found balance when it comes to the quarterback running. He used to be maniacal about that. And right now, it seems to me like he's gone all the way in on this slow pace of play. And eventually, he's going to find some more balance here. Because you can be a couple of things, right? You can be on the forefront of the cutting edge of something, or you can look like you're just trying to be the smartest guy in the room, and this really doesn't have a whole lot of effect other than slowing everything down and getting everybody out of their rhythm, not playing as much football, getting less reps. I don't know. You can say you had proof of concept last year, but you can also say, okay, what if you didn't do it? Who's to say? If you didn't do it, maybe your center wouldn't have blown out his knee in practice. Maybe you wouldn't have lost your left tackle. No, all those things happened. Like injuries happen, guys get worn out. Yeah, sure. Everybody looked fresh. Okay, what if you played 45 plays quicker, fast pace, and pulled your starters and let them rest? Who knows? You can't disprove it. You can't prove it either. But he's leaned in even harder on this. Anyway, I think we're closer to knowing what this identity is in the next 3 games. You got Minnesota on Saturday. Then you go to Illinois. After Illinois, you go to Wisconsin. So 2 straight road games. What if we see them go to play Minnesota and play it like we saw them play their other home games, then go to Illinois and we see something similar to the Washington road game? Then I think we've seen a trend. All right, big games, they're going to play conservative. Games where it's not much of a challenge, they're going to ball out. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. These next 2 games should probably tell the tale. But I'm not someone who thinks this defense is so good you can just roll out an offense and say, give me 24 points and we're going to win the game. And I don't think that's Ryan Day's philosophy here. We did see Georgia win a national championship twice playing football like that. Their 2021 and 2022 defenses were that good. But in 2022, in the playoffs, they ran into Ohio State, and all of a sudden, they needed to turn on the offense. They needed to score to keep up, and they were able to do it. Now, when we look at the playoffs, Georgia got to play Ohio State, and then they went and played TCU for the national championship. That was the playoffs. Now you've got a bit of a gauntlet, and it's probably likely that more than one team is going to test your offense like that. And if your offensive identity is, we're going to defer to the defense and just score what we need to score, what happens when you need to turn it on? If you haven't really repped it and you don't got that in you, do you think you can just snap your fingers and all of a sudden it's going to all work like that? It did for Georgia in 22 against Ohio State. Who knows if it does or it doesn't? But I don't understand what would be the issue with having the normal offense you're used to having and also having this amazing defense. I don't know. I would sure like to see that. I hate the conservative stuff. I can't stand it. It doesn't remind me of who Ryan Day is. But hey, man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, Washington was an interesting game like Texas. I think the next few games will tell the tale as to what these guys are going to be. However, I do think that through 4 games now, even more so than I thought at the beginning of the year, I wasn't all the way in. I had a couple of picks for a national championship. I couldn't tie my wagons to any enough to make a bet. But right now, I think it's pretty clear that Ohio State's the best team in the country, which, looking around at the competition, there's nobody that I look at and I fear. And last year, I felt the same way. Though I felt Georgia was the best competition coming into the season, I look around now and I think it's Oregon. And Oregon, they scored 17 points against Penn State. I think Ohio State's defense is considerably better than Penn State. I think it's the best team again. And a tremendous opportunity here. A tremendous opportunity. So super, super excited, guys. But I'd love to hear your opinion on that offensive identity. Now, if you could, please like the show. I want to get into a couple of recruiting comments, and I am going to swing through your comments here in a few. Woody says, the talking heads are saying that fans describing the underthrown deep balls as intentional is coping. Julian is 9 for 9. I would say that's proof of concept. Is that what they're saying, bro? Coping? So I said it on Twitter to the college football nerds, and underneath that, Marcus Hartman, Buckeye beat writer, tweeted he had a short of Ryan Day explaining from a press conference that was, it was like 3 weeks ago. I was there, where he was talking about this, about what I just described, how he coaches them to throw them. That wasn't coping at all. So I should find that and retweet it so that you can go ahead and put that under the next guy that says that. It's not coping at all. It's how he really coaches it. Oh, look at this. Jackson Dollar Holler. This is our buddy Rome. Jackson, his nephew, is a very highly rated safety. He's now the #1 player in North Carolina. Not safety, tight end. This is the second time I've done that today. Said safety for tight end. Jackson, now the #1 player in North Carolina as a junior. Number 3 Rivals tight end. Number 5 on 3. Stock is way up, and that is sensational. Kid is a fantastic athlete with a Buckeye offer, and we will see what happens, man. That'll be exciting. I'm with No Longer the Man. Sayin can throw a deep ball better than Howard. Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, buddy. Do you think a veteran tight end would have went to the next level and picked that block up, Chuck? I know it was a split-second decision, but I'm curious. Man, I don't know. I think he saw out of the corner of his eye Jelani was getting beat, and that guy was coming through. And my guess is they've repped this a lot of times with him at full. But then again, remember, he's not even really playing tight end there. He's playing fullback. And, I don't know that a veteran tight end would be used to playing that fullback role because we're not used to seeing it. Somebody put in the Buckeye Huddle chat the other day talking about Braden Feaster, and Braden Feaster is at Hoban, one of the seniors at Hoban. Awesome prospect, getting recruited by pretty much everybody except Ohio State right now. And he is a running back linebacker. But yesterday, Ryan Day was asked about rostering a fullback, and he said there's just not enough versatility. They would have to bring some more. And he was thinking maybe Braden Feaster would be perfect for a role like that, whereas Nate Roberts and some of these guys, because Day was saying these tight end body types are perfect for us to use as a fullback. And Feaster would be really good for that. But in terms of the tight end work, I don't know so much about that. Built a lot like Mitch Rossi, only super jacked. So about 6'2". Listed at 6'3", but I don't believe he is. Can I talk about Arvell Reese? He's jumped into a first-round pick so quickly. The dude is unbelievable. Yeah, so I got this thing. I don't know what it is about me, But it's like when somebody hits like critical mass, it's then like, okay, I'll leave that to them now. You know what I mean? Like last year, 4 games into the season, I was getting yelled at by everybody because I was screaming that Arvel Reese was a future superstar and he needed to play. And it doesn't matter how good Cody or Sonny are. This kid needs to be on the field. And they were calling me an idiot and a moron and all sorts of names. Well, I was right. Arvel is way better than Cody and way better than Sonny, both of whom I love. Cody's my favorite player on the team last year. But this was apparent. This is always who he was. Always. Now he's hit critical mass and it's like, all right, y'all take it and run. You know what I'm saying? It's incredible. It's incredible. I think one of my favorite clips I saw was from the Ohio game where the tackle comes out to try to block him. And Arvel holds his ground and holds this guy out here with one hand and then decides, all right, I'm ready to break on the play. And as soon as he's ready, he breaks his elbow and at the same time grabs it with his right arm and just throws this 300-pound guy on the ground. It was incredible. Like there's so many clips of him just doing incredible things this year. I don't know that we've ever seen, we've had so many physical freaks line up in that uniform. I don't know who's on your top 5, but he's kicking somebody off of it, right? I mean, he's right up there with the tops of the tops. He's right up there with Chase Young for me in a Buckeye uniform as the freakiest freak that's ever freaked at Ohio State. He's ridiculous. It's not even the play where Damon Williams is running to the left. And honestly, I said this kid is going to have an issue when he goes to run. He is going to have an issue when he has never felt athletes like this. And he's going to think he can get a lane and he's going to think he can get an edge and he's not going to be able to get it. And we saw it early. He rolls out to the left. He takes off. Arvel is spying him. And he doesn't think Arvel is going to beat him. And not only does Arvel beat him out there, he tries to shake him and go inside. And Arvel's able to stay with him and tackle him. That shouldn't be possible. That's a 240-pound guy. And that kid moves like a rabbit, is what Ryan Day said. And he really does. That was incredible. Like the degree of difficulty there was just insane. But I love Arvel. I absolutely think he's a first-round pick. Dane Bugler just said he wouldn't be surprised if he is drafted ahead of Caleb, which it's honestly, it makes a lot of sense because Caleb, just positional value wise, Caleb's a safety, even though I think he'll be the highest drafted safety in some time. Arvel, the position versatility and the ability to rush the passer, which is the primo money position on the defense. It's just something to behold, man. Guy's making himself a whole lot of money. And without a doubt, one of the most special guys we've ever seen athletically at Ohio State. But what I think is even more impressive is we know that he is out there. He's out there making adjustments, and he's a heady player as well. Rome, how much of a percentage do you think Day is still calling plays, or is it just in situations? Yeah, I don't think much. I think he's very heavily involved obviously heavily involved in the game plan to a point where, so let's say, for instance, last year, I was thinking about this the other day. Let's say, for instance, last year with Chip Kelly, we know how the relationship between those two were. Chip Kelly wasn't ever going to be submissive to Ryan Day, right? So if they disagree, they were going to disagree. And I don't think there was Ryan Day like, I'm putting my foot down, this is what we're doing. In this particular situation, let's say Ryan Day wants to play this conservative game plan and his offensive coordinator really doesn't, man. He wants to open it up a little bit. You hired me to run the offense. I get this is, the game plan. This is what part of it you want to put in, but I want to open it up a little bit this week because I'm working on this or that or this. Does Ryan Day trump him and say, no, I don't want to do that? How often does it happen? Obviously, he's just learning, getting his feet wet, so it'll be a lot at first. But there was a lot of questions to Brian Hartline at his last press conference 2 weeks ago. Kind of like, what does he let you do? And it almost sounded like so condescending. But in a way, you got to wonder, is Brian Hartline the new one that's super conservative? Like, is it the addition of him, or is it the subtraction of Chip? And this is how Day is being with Hartline. You know what I mean? It's a whole lot, but I don't know. And the thing is, we never know. All we can do is speculate on this kind of stuff. Guest Breezer, Wind Theorist, thank you so much for joining, a new member. We got a troll in the house. You're out of here, pal. I don't know who you're used to talking to. Juck, is what Ryan to the defense not just the opposite of what used to happen to his offenses? Is what Ryan did to the defense not just the opposite of what used to happen to his offenses? I don't get it, buddy. Is what Ryan doing to the defense the same thing that used to happen to his offenses? I think you can lean on the side of the ball, but not live and die by it. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. So you're saying, so here's the thing. Ryan Day used to have crappy defenses, right? There have been times when Ryan Day's defenses sucked. So he leaned on his offenses to carry those crappy defenses because he had to outscore. What's the reason for this? Because you got a great defense, you should automatically just suck on offense? Oh, wait. What if I've got first rounders all over on offense? What if I've got them? Should I artificially hold them back because my defense is good? You see what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why? What's the point? That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, sure. If they really do suck, okay, we got to lean on the defense, but they don't. We know they don't. That's the point I'm making. But I feel you. Yeah. Like, if your offense sucked, sure. Oh, was I doing that? He said, it's funny how I was gesturing Reese's play right under his jersey right there. Oh, by the way, I just got I'm with Buck Rational. Day was never this conservative. That's the thing. I'm with Buck Rational here. That Day was never this conservative, but I wanted to tell you, I just got a message that Bo Jackson's jersey just shipped. So I'm very excited about that. Very excited about Bo in the house. The question is, does Bo go on the wall or does Bo go on the shoulders for game day? I don't know yet. Duke says they should spread some people out. Get some guys out of the damn box instead of just putting 4 tight ends in the game. I'm with you, bud. I'm with you. Let's go ahead and get some of those defenders the hell out of there. You're too congested. We can't breathe. We can't breathe in here. I want to talk about a couple of commits, guys. So Brady Edmunds is just about, I don't know, man. You know, there's some recruits where it's just like, that is the prototype right there. That guy's got it all. He is 6'5" when he committed to Ohio State last December. Since then, hard work in the gym. He's put on 20 pounds and he's bigger. Dude has a cannon. I mean, an absolute cannon. He's going to have a hard time putting all this air under the ball because he can actually throw that 45 in the air on the frozen rope. I mean, he's awesome. And he is the quarterback committed in 2027. Not only is he all that physically, he can run as well. He can move. Not a burner, but he has a 70-yard touchdown on his film. Like, he is not some slow kid. He can move. And since he signed, the day that he committed to Ohio State, he was 247's number 2 quarterback in the class, number 15 overall. And they have consecutively, in every one of their rankings, dropped him down. In the most recent one, I'll pull him up right here. Our buddy Brady has dropped down to 247's number 15th ranked quarterback. So he was 15 overall. Now he's their 15th quarterback. And he's the number 233 player in the country. And as you can see, that is the lowest on him by a considerable margin. He's the number 2 quarterback in ESPN, which normally I would never cite and means nothing. But Tom Luganbill is their guy, and he actually does know quarterbacks, and he does know Brady very well. So I take that to mean something there when it comes to ESPN. Rivals, top 124, and it's really pissed me off, and I'll tell you why. When Brady committed to Ohio State, he was the first quarterback to commit in the class out of the top 25 quarterbacks, the only one. So Brady commits, the only quarterback. What happens? Well, now he's not as interesting. He's not as interesting because he's a solid commit to Ohio State, and they know his ties to Ohio State. They know his grandpa is from Cuyahoga Falls. They know the family loves Ohio State. They know he's not going anywhere, and he's not going anywhere. Brady told me right here on the show, like he said, what did he say? I was asking him, so Brady committed right after the game, and he came into town to go to the game and to commit after the game. And obviously the game went the way the game went. And I said to him, you know, everything that was going on, I'm sure you heard it, all the stuff the fan base was saying and everything. What did that make you feel? Like, I mean, obviously you chose to double down and say, no, I'm going to be a Buckeye. And you committed in that time period, which was obviously, I mean, as a fan, like, thank you. That was great news at a time where everything felt like it was falling apart. And I think that was really awesome. But was part of you not like scared that there was maybe unstable footing? Nobody else was committing at that time period. And he said, you know, it was crazy. After the game, we were out to eat. We were getting burgers, and it was like I was hearing people over my shoulder talking and hearing people over the table left to me. And I'm like, should I really do this? And then a couple of days, I was just thinking, like, you know, I love Coach Day, but whether Coach Day is here or not, like, I'm going to Ohio State because I want to be the quarterback at Ohio State. And, you know, nothing was going to change my mind. That's like, I don't know, 1995 talk you might hear from a kid. That's not what happens today. That doesn't happen unless you're an in-stater. But Brady is in-state adjacent. This kid grew up in a household full of Buckeye fans. I love him. I think he's going to be a fantastic quarterback at Ohio State. I am furious about this because I think it's total bullshit. And I think I apologize for my language. I think it's simply because he committed early. And he, you know, they sell these stories are big for them, especially when it's a quarterback. Well, he's taken up somebody's spot, right? Somebody's spot that can move action for him, move clicks. And you can say, who cares? It doesn't matter. Oh, it does matter. These agents use these in negotiations. These rankings have tangible financial value now. Like, it's that legit. And it matters to a lot of these kids. And Brady doesn't like it at all. I can tell you that for certain. He's very, very irritated by it. He's like, I just go out in my senior year or my junior year, and I'm out here throwing 7 touchdowns in a game, and I'm dropping like this. Oh, you just found a bunch of dudes that are better? Okay. Like, whatever. If it puts a chip on his shoulder, all the better. I'll be mad for him. That's not the only recruiting news we got. John says, chill on the tight ends. Why put any true red zone wide receiver plays on film for tougher competition? We are resting the D for the long haul. Why put any true red zone wide receiver plays on film, buddy? There's no secret. There's no secret plays. You can guard them or you can't. Like that's what it is. Can you guard Jeremiah and Carnell, or are they going to get the better of you? That's just what it is. Sage thinks we got a shutout coming against Minnesota. Minnesota's got a tough offense now. They got a pretty decent quarterback. Remember, they just scored in the 30s against Rutgers. And I think that while Rutgers probably sucks, they do suck. I think that this might be, outside of Washington and Texas and Ohio, probably the best offense we've faced so far. So you're probably right. Probably going to shut them out. So 4 players that, I forgot to tell you about the flip. We got a potential flip coming, guys. So Corbin Fordham, the tight end in the class of 2025, 2026, is from the Bulls School in Jacksonville. The Bulls School in Jacksonville, his teammate Simeon Caldwell, also committed to Ohio State. Simeon committed to McGrary in the safety room, and probably a guy who's going to end up being an outside linebacker. But Corbin Fordham, 6'4", now up to 227. Last time Mark just went down and saw him at the Bulls School. And Corbin, his dad went to Florida State. Well, last year, during the hot and heavy period of Corbin's recruitment, Florida State was in the midst of their worst season ever, 2-10. And now Florida State looks really good. So Florida State out here looking really good. Dad is an alum. And Corbin, according to sources to Steve Wiltfong, is going to be at the Miami FSU game this weekend. In addition to that, one of the FSU guys, out of the blue, crystal balled Fordham to FSU. Generally, that means some information came up that is also verifying this other guy. Okay, there's really something here. So apparently there was supposed to be a conversation between Fordham and Ohio State on Monday, is what was in the publication. Like, why do we need to set up some conversation on Monday? That sounded like some gobbledygook. Keenan Bailey knows this kid well enough to pick up the phone. We don't need to schedule a conversation. I'll just call you. So some odd stuff going around Corbin Fordham. Now, I could tell you this. This is the guy who is probably, of all the kids in this class, there's like 23. He would be the number 22, like the 22nd most likely kid that I would think would flip out of this class. But there's a possibility. If he goes to that game, I know for certain that's not going to fly well. Ohio State doesn't like it when a kid does that. They'll tolerate it if you're a top of the board guy. Not going to fly for a 3-star tight end that Keenan really likes because he really likes the kid and the individual and believes in him and wants to develop him. That's different than Max Sutter, who's down in Alabama or committed to Alabama, who Keenan would love to flip out of the class, who is a super talented tight end, who he'd also like to develop and such. But if he does inevitably flip, this is absolutely inconsequential to the class. Really, it's a great tight end class in 2027. The tight end class in Ohio is great in 2027. And in 2026, it would be a bit of a bummer, as you did let a tight end get out of Ohio to commit to Georgia and another one to Notre Dame. So you let those two get out of state. The one going to Notre Dame out of Toledo Central Catholic, Preston Frizel, I really like. I think he'd have been a really great fit as well. But you let those two roll. There is one more, though, Nick Lauder. And Nick Lauder is out of Lebanon, Ohio. And Nick is someone that visited recently. And I think that he is definitely on the board. I know that he's being monitored, his games every week. We could potentially see an offer to Nick if this happens with Corbin Fordham, which again would really surprise me. But let's get to the players I was talking about. So players that I would like to see get some more playing time. When we look at the offensive line, and it's a unit that is playing with an incredible edge, which I love. You got 2 tackles with Austin Saraveld, Phil Daniels, 2 Ohio boy tackles, by the way, who are just playing really, really good. And when you look at next year, you're like, man, we're going to have these 2 back next year. Like, this is the makings for a great offensive line for a couple of years. Then you got Luke, and he is just in his first year starting, which is almost like you almost forget that it's his first year starting because he's been, I don't know, just kind of at the forefront of my brain for so long as an Ohio State offensive lineman. This is his first year, and he's killing it, crushing guys. Love seeing it. Carson playing really, really good. And then you got Tegra, who is just, my hope was he would improve. He's not improved over the offseason. He's not improved throughout the season. He's consistently making mistakes more than anybody on this offensive line. And Ethan Anyanwa was getting about 15 snaps a game in place of Tegra at right guard. And Ethan, who started off pretty rough, was starting to look better. And when we look at Tegra, who's given up 5 hurries and 6 pressures, 11 total, the next closest guy is only given up 5. It would seem like, all right, Ethan's doing better. Maybe he'll start eating into his snaps a little bit. And then the Washington game comes, and we don't see Ethan play a single snap, even though Tegra had a pretty rough game. Really rough game. But he played every snap at Washington. So the first guy that I think I would like to see get a little more run is Ethan Anyanwa. Every time he's been in there, it's felt like the running game was a little bit better. He's a little bit more of a nasty run blocker. And I don't know how you could be too much worse of a pass protector than Tegra when it comes to this offensive line. Consistently, he's the one. If there's an error, it's coming from him. I really like Tegra. I think he's an awesome kid. He's introspective. He's really thoughtful, but he's not making that step. Maybe he needs to lose some playing time for that to happen. I don't know. Moving over to the defensive line. When we look at Caden McDonald, he's now like the number, he's got to be a top 3 1 tech in all of football right now. He might be the best. He is just so nasty. He's such a playmaker. And we were talking on the Buckeye Huddle board about K-Mac versus Tyleek. Who would you pick to start your team? Which I think is a really fun argument to have. I went with K-Mac, but the only reason I went with K-Mac is because of his motor, where Tyleek, sometimes his motor kind of petered out. So I went with K-Mac. But when we look at the defensive line, when we look at 3 tech, Edric obviously has lost his starting role now. Edric's out of there. Ty Malone's starting. And Ty Malone has not been playing great. He's been playing okay. But who has been playing great, and the second best defensive tackle on this team this year, has been Will Smith Jr. Will Smith Jr. is a 1 tech now. He is backing up technically Caden McDonald. But there's no rules for anybody else on this defensive line. We're seeing Kenyatta play 3 tech. Caden Curry's playing nose. Nobody else has any rules. Bo Atkinson's playing the 4-eye. Like, what are we doing here? If these guys can all move everywhere, why can't we see Will Smith Jr. and K-Mac together? They're the 2 best. Let's see those 2 on the field together. So Will Smith Jr. playing only 11 snaps at Washington. 9 snaps, which I'm not advocating for him to play over K-Mac. But you got Ty Malone playing 30 and Will Smith Jr. playing 9. Let's see a little more Will is what I'm saying. Will's looking good. And I'm excited about Will. Like he's got me like really excited. So that's another guy that I would love to see. And I'm going to go with wide receivers. Brandon Inniss in this last game against Washington, I think Brian already vindicated him. He was getting a lot of crap from the public, and the film and Brian Hartline kind of vindicated him for not getting many targets, etc. And then we see him at Washington. He gets 3 targets. Of course, he got the fumble, right? Which is why I'm hesitant before I praise him here. He fumbled the ball on a punt return. He made up for it. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 33 yards, 2 first downs, and he looked juicier. He looked like he was flying around. It looked better than it had all year. It looked like we saw in the summertime. And that's great. However, I would love to see a little bit of Bryson Rodgers as well. Bryson, who got 2 snaps in the game, is faster than Brandon. He's got great hands. He runs tremendous routes. He's been around a while. It feels like, this guy deserves a little bit of run, and I would certainly love to see it. You might lose a little in blocking, but you gain a little bit in the receiving ability, in my opinion. And I would certainly like to see him get his shot. Now, I know a lot of people want to see Milan, and that's great, but Milan, you're not pulling BI off. I wouldn't pull Carnell or Jeremiah off for Bryson Rodgers. If Milan Graham was playing in the slot behind Brandon Inniss, okay, fine. I'm with you. He's not. But Bryson is. So that's why my pick there is Bryson. And the fourth guy, and most important, the guy I think that could have the biggest change to this team if he were able to get some more run, well, you'll have to watch the episode on Juck on Bucks to find out that fourth guy. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me over on Buckeye Huddle. The Buckeyes play Minnesota on Saturday, and we will go over on Juck on Bucks some more stuff about Minnesota on Thursday and Friday, as we always do, as well as our picks of the week, which were, I mean, like, you guys at this point, you need to fade me, because I'm hot if you're going the other way. It's going to be fantastic. So hope to see you guys over there on Thursday and Friday. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much in the chat for keeping me company and talking some Buckeyes. Have a fantastic day, guys. Buckeye Huddle.